Welcome back to the Quest for the Perfect Bracket Show live. We've seen plenty of Andy already, and we now welcome in Andy Katz live. Andy, thanks for joining us. Where are you exactly? We've been making bets on what state you might be in today.
I'm actually at home at my home away from home office in Newport, Rhode Island. I lucked out with a schedule of a Friday, Sunday regional. So I was in New York yesterday. I was in Minnesota for a week. So I was able to come home for one day to actually pick up my dry cleaning, do laundry, repack, and I'm off to Indianapolis first thing in the morning. So it would have been a tight turnaround if I had a Thursday, Saturday, but this way I can join you.
Here we go. Perfect timing. Well, avid basketball fans might already know this, but for those who don't, can you give us your background on how long you've been covering March Madness and college basketball and how you got into it?
All right. So first of all, you're not allowed to tell me when you were born. That's number one. Because clearly my career surpasses your lifespan. Although I don't do a good job of not being gray here.
There you go.
So yeah, I mean, it dates back. This is going to be my first Final Four was 92 in Minnesota when Duke won the second of its back-to-back championships.
Definitely not going to tell you when I was born then.
Yeah, don't. Then after that, obviously Florida did it a decade later, and now we have a chance maybe UConn would. So yeah, my career, I mean, I was working covering it sort of at Wisconsin when I went to school, but really it started in Albuquerque, covering the University of New Mexico, which sidebar would tell you this is the best, most talented New Mexico team I've seen since I was covering them. And then I went to Fresno to cover Tark, where I was the beat writer and Adrian Wojnarowski was the columnist. So I knew Woj before the Woj bombs and all his NBA coverage. And then went to ESPN in the fall of 99 and was there till 2017 before I joined the NCAA.
All right. So tell us now about your role with the NCAA, NCAA.com, and March Madness. What do you do?
Well, it's a year-round gig and it has morphed in a variety of ways. We had a great run of our social series during the pandemic, where we were doing all that. And it's covering the sport year-round in various forms for NCAA.com, for March Madness MBB on social media, now Bleacher Report, doing a lot with them. A lot of times it was stories and videos and interviews, and now a word I did not know, Michaela, that existed called listicles. I did not know that word existed. It's a new word for me that I've learned over the last couple of years. Podcasting in the traditional form, now it's more streams. So I have said this to many, a younger person that is getting in the business, that if you don't adapt, you will get left aside. And you've got to adapt and change with the times. And I'll tell you, my phone, I now do videos on that. I used to have a camera. And if you don't adapt to using a phone and for content, because content to me is king and queen, always will be, always has been. And that's what it's all about. And you've got to adapt with everything. And that's what I've continued to do. And hopefully has kept me relevant. I don't know if we're screen sharing here, but I'm seeing a picture of me and President Obama. A little disappointed.
I was going to get to that.
All right. Well, I was going to say, all right, well, I'll let you do you be the host here.
Well, we do want to know more about this. So tell us, we know you went to the White House and you did a bracket with President Obama. So we have this photo up now. Everybody sees it. Let's hear all about it.
All right. So I've told the story many times, but I will tell it again. So I went 8 straight years. What happened was I was doing a story for Outside the Lines. I was doing the basketball in the Obamas. Someone else was doing auto racing in the McCains. This is the 08 election. Again, don't tell me where you were in 2008. You definitely were born. I know that. 2008 election, interviewed everyone related to then Senator Obama. We went to the convention, had this whole piece. And the last piece of the puzzle was to interview him. And we got word from the campaign, we're going to meet him at a Hampton Inn in Dunn, North Carolina, the week and a half before the election, because he was going to go speak at Fort Bragg. So we're doing the interview in this little conference room. Sidebar, I can't for the life of me believe that they only gave me one camera, and we had no makeup person. We had the girlfriend of our camera guy who had makeup in her bag because the campaign says, "Hey, where's the makeup for Senator Obama?" She literally pulls out her own compact and starts dabbling.
Oh my
Then
gosh.
Senator Obama. Little sidebar there. Anyway, the key point is on Meet the Press that morning, Colin Powell, general, endorses Obama, not McCain. So you've got endorsing the non-military person. Why is that news? He's about to speak at Fort Bragg. What happened? Well, David Axelrod and Robert Gibbs are in the room and they say, wait a minute, we got to tweak the speech. Sit tight. Secret Service says stay there. That gives me 30 minutes. We're already done with the interview. 30 minutes, just me and Obama. In that time frame, he says to me, hey, do you still play? I said, well, I used to. I don't play that much anymore. He goes, you want to play on election day? I said, sure. And then, boom, epiphany. I stand up. I said, we're in the same chairs during the interview. I stand up and I say, Senator, I got a great idea. If you win in March, I'm going to come to the White House and do the bracket with you. He says, that's a great idea. Boom. I point to Axelrod and Gibbs. I say, you heard that? Yes. And to their credit, they kept their promise. I did play on election day. I did go to the inauguration, and that year 1, year 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, we lucked out because it was always the chance that something horrendous could happen and we wouldn't be able to do it. There actually was a tsunami once, and that almost derailed us. But that did not happen. But 8 straight years. In addition, interviewed him on the USS Carl Vinson when we did the game between North Carolina and Michigan State. I went to the White House and probably 4 or 5 other times. Title IX anniversary, did a walk and talk on the back lawn, shot some hoops on the basketball court outside there. So it was a great run, and I do think it worked because he was into it. I don't know necessarily it would have worked with maybe with Clinton because Clinton was a big Arkansas fan. I mean, with Bush too, I think you could have definitely done a baseball bracket. He owned the Texas Rangers. I believed when it was Trump v. Clinton, Hillary, that is, I didn't think it would necessarily work. When Trump won, we had to ask. We asked. He said no. And I actually was fine with that, regardless of politics, because I thought it wouldn't work. He's not into the sport. Obama is. And it worked. And it was a great run.
What?
So there's your story.
President, I know, it's a great story. I'm glad we had time to tell it. What were his picks like? Was he knowledgeable? Did he seem to have a favorite?
Yeah, and by the way, we did the men's, and the first year we only did the men's. Final 7 years, we did the men and the women. I think I did the women 1 or 2 years, and then we brought Doris Burke, and then Rebecca Lobo finished it up, I think the last 5 or 6 years. And yeah, he was very knowledgeable. And I would jab him a little bit on, especially during the election year in 2012, if we were gonna if he was gonna pick only swing states and so on. But he definitely knew it. He knew players' names, and he would tell me that at the end of the day, this is how he sort of relaxed. He'd watch games at night and watch SportsCenter and stuff like that. And so it was what his way of, and actually I was told many times that the 20 minutes we were together on that day, not because of me, but because we were doing something completely non-serious for those 20 minutes, was some of his favorite time because it allowed him to just completely break out of it. And by the way, that picture that we showed, that's in the map room. I'm a little bit of a political junkie and history nerd, and I loved this room at the White House because it has these historic maps, including like a sort of a crude map from World War II of looking where movement was for Eisenhower's troops and so on, and just the whole thing was very cool. It never gets old. One little quick story, if I can tell you, that was really funny the first year we went, which was the crew, and we only used them 1 year. They come in there, we get there hours before, and they just start throwing their jackets and their stuff whenever you work with a big crew, and they just throw it everywhere. Meanwhile, they're throwing it on like George Washington's couch, and the curators come in and like, whoa, no, do not touch anything. Do not put your stuff anywhere. And people forgot we're literally in the White House, and you have to be very, even under the board where the bracket is, there was, things that were put underneath the stand so it doesn't directly touch the rug. All these things had to be carefully done.
Yeah, that had to be pretty cool. All right. Well, a great story. I'm so glad you told it. It's such a good one. But you've been covering this tournament for many years, this is such a hard question. What is your favorite thing about March Madness? And then a second part to that question, what's your favorite March Madness game ever?
Well, I mean, first of all, I don't think I'm biased in saying this. I think it is the greatest playoffs of any sport in America, because it's one and done. And yes, the NFL is one and done too, but it just doesn't have the same feeling, the upset feeling that college basketball has. Certainly on the men's side, we've had a little of these upsets on the women's side. So you've got this David Goliath thing that always happens. May not happen in the championship game, but we always have at least one, if not a couple. We've got these players and these iconic moments. I mean, Bryce Drew's shot that we talked about here on March Madness. I mean, that's going to live forever. I mean, the fact that Valparaiso, this tiny school in northern Indiana, knocks off, Ole Miss, even though isn't a great basketball school. It's still the SEC, and
Right.
there's so many of those kind of moments. As for my favorites, I would say the two that immediately jump out to me. One is certainly 2008. When we first time at the time, I think, I don't know if it was the first time ever, it was certainly the first time in a long time that there were 4 number ones that were there. And
Only
that was
time
the
ever,
Mario
yeah.
Chalmers 3-pointer to tie the game for Kansas against Memphis. They ultimately beat them in overtime. The drama of that one was unbelievable. Actually, I'm going to give you 3 if I can, please. I mean, number one obviously was Chris Jenkins, so I should put that forward.
Okay.
Chris Jenkins, that 3-pointer at the buzzer to beat North Carolina, and also just, I actually happened to be sitting next to Craig Sager. That was the last time that he went to a Final Four, and I didn't know him that well, but I knew him, and obviously he was sick, but he was still covering it. And I remember we just like grabbed each other, like it was just so crazy because our seats happened to be next to each other. And just that moment was unbelievable. And then it has to be 2010, because in 2010, where I was sitting for Duke Butler, I literally had like a clear view of where Gordon Hayward's shot was going, and it just looked like it was going to go in. And it literally, it was one of those moments where you felt like you're almost in a movie, because everything was it was almost in slow motion as you're seeing the ball just go and hit the back of the rim, and bounce around and then pop out. I mean, if that had gone down at Lucas Oil in Indianapolis, Butler, Duke, I mean, literally, I mean, it would have been maybe one of the greatest sporting moments ever, because of who it was against, the manner in which the city it was in, everything. So that has to be in the top 3 for me.